One, two, three, four, five. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, don't mind me. I'm just counting wins for Arizona State this season. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Happy schedule release Tuesday on February 4th, and welcome into the PHNX Sun Devil Show, coming to you live from Studio K, presented by Circle K. Join the Inner Circle for free by downloading the Circle K app today. Terms and conditions apply at participating locations. Visit CircleK.com for details. Hello and welcome in to the show. Oh, you might be thinking, Eric, are you by yourself? No, of course not. Because of course I've got my guy, Ralph Amsden, back again after spitting that super hot fire about Bobby Hurley yesterday. It's time to switch gears and talk about Arizona State football's official 2025 schedule. Thanks, John BC, Ric Flair, everybody in the chat who's already been in here and dropped a like. Make sure you subscribe to PHNX Sports so you're here for every step of the way. We are doing a basketball postgame tonight, doubling up on shows and talking a little hoops at the end of it. But Ralph, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I went back through. I read the YouTube comments from yesterday.
Oh no, you should never do that.
Yeah. I took a dive down into the sewer, and it was just a lot of like U of A fans contradicting themselves. It was actually a fun read. You have one person be like, ASU is just another game on our schedule, and then another U of A fan being like, no, it isn't. And so, like, you know, they were arguing with each other and accusing us of being Bobby super defenders and
which is crazy. How do you listen to that episode and think that? Yeah,
right.
Like, we spent that entire episode being like, you know, if you're really evaluating it, we like Bobby, we like some things about him, but like, man, there's some stuff that's just not good. Bobby apologist. Oh,
right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, it was like it was the Doctor Strange scene from the Avengers, where he's like, well, there is a 1 in 1.3 million chance that this works, and the U of A fans are in the comments being Lloyd Christmas saying, so you're telling me there's a chance? Like, I don't think we ever even alluded to it. I would love for it to be a possibility. It doesn't feel that way right now.
Yeah, and if you want to go back, Ralph and I basically spent like 55 straight minutes just talking about the state of Arizona State basketball, Bobby Hurley, what the future should hold, if we should trust him and whatnot. So if you're trying to bridge the gap between this show and tonight's show, then you can watch that show in between and basically just be PHNX Sun Devil to the max for the entire day. But switching gears, Ralph, I don't know if you know about this little thing called college football. And it's a pretty big day in the Big 12, at least the biggest day we're going to get for a while. Schedule release day, all the teams had their schedules released. I personally thought they were going to go like game by game through a TV show this morning, so I like sat down and was ready to watch, and then Arizona State football just tweeted it out. So what were your initial responses and feelings to seeing the official 2025 schedule for Arizona State?
It felt very friendly. It felt like a really good schedule. I love the way it's laid out. I love the way it's spaced out. It was exciting. It's an exciting schedule. There's going to be some good home games. There's going to be some away games that are within reach, I think, for the traveling contingent of ASU fans. And then you have the real, I think, the challenge game in visiting Ames. And I went through this schedule, and I mean, I don't typically go through the ASU schedule the way I would a Cardinals schedule. and assign wins and losses, but I just wanted to do the thought exercise of what was feasible. What did I think was feasible last year versus what I think is feasible this year? It's a 5-game bump.
Wow. I mean, well, what we're going to do is we're going to go week by week, game by game, not only kind of give our way too early, breakdowns of it, but also give our predictions as well and think, where will Arizona State end up? So as we go along, chat, I highly encourage everybody to drop your predictions for each game that we go through, what you think is going to happen, your overall season predictions, and make sure you hit that like button as well. It helps out so much, helps us keep the lights on here and continue to talk football with Ralph Amsden. So let's start with week 1, as most people would. Arizona State at home taking on their in-state rivals, the Northern Arizona University Lumberjacks. How you feeling about week 1, Ralph? AKA, how many snaps is Sam Levitt going to play?
Well, here's the thing. NAU, they're like contractually obligated to get beat up on once every other year. But I still have memories of the last time, and I'm assuming Arizona State's going to go into this season ranked. And the last time Arizona State went into a season ranked after their season ending against Texas, and they had a returning quarterback, and they opened against NAU, it was a little bit of a struggle fest and a little bit of a preview of things to come, which ended up being a 5-game losing streak in games 3 through 8. And that's the 2008 season. So you can't really take anything for granted. You want to look as sharp as possible against NAU. You can't really struggle against NAU and then expect the rest of the season to I'm saying, and then expect the rest of the season to look good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you're right. And that was honestly, like, I'm not even trying to. I know it's fun and it's quite convenient, like crap on U of A, but I knew that their season was fraudulent through the first 3 weeks of it, which included their game against NAU. And I think that if you're going to walk into the Big 12 contenders, if you're going to walk into the Big 12, maybe the championship favorites in the conference, you play NAU week 1, you better send a damn message. The same way that you sent a message against Wyoming, right? The same way that you went into last season, even without the expectations, but you were trying to prove yourself as one of the best teams of the conference, or at least slowly get there. You got to take care of business in dramatic fashion against those that are significantly lower level football programs than you. And that's no hate to NAU. It's just the way that things are. Arizona State was just in the college football playoffs. You need to start the season and act like it. Lots of people in the chat, of course, are going with W. Short Bus says W. John Whitaker says 56-13 ASU win. Ernesto goes 60-13 ASU win. Sharon says, don't jinx us, though. Knock on all wood. And that's about it for that specific game. We have championship game predictions. I do want to say
something. In 2008, that game against NAU with a senior Rudy Carpenter coming off a bowl game against Texas, 63,000 people showed up. You can't fit 63,000 anymore, but there's no reason that stadium shouldn't be packed out for week 1. Don't take NAU for granted. Go be loud and enjoy a win.
I mean, don't take it for granted. Go enjoy it, right? Yeah. I mean, obviously, and I don't think Kenny and this staff are the type of teams to overlook these quote unquote lower level competitions, right? Because they're smart and they're also coaches that look for great football players in places that maybe you don't normally find great football players. So I don't think that any part of Arizona State football is going to be ill prepared or, just coasting for week 1. I think they're going to be like dogs just getting ready to let out into the backyard, right? They're just going to get ready to run. And I think it's going to be a really fun moment to not just be able to kind of celebrate what happened this past season without the overarching stench of the college football playoffs, like lingering, and a good entrance into 2025. But it gets a little bit tougher in week 2. You're on the road and you're going to SEC country, baby. You are taking on the Mississippi State Bulldogs on September 6th. Ralph, you took care of Mississippi State at home for your first win over an SEC program in 2024. What do you think happens when you're on the road in 2025?
They're going to be improved. Jeff Lebby is a good offensive coach. You'd expect them to be able to put some points on the board. and you probably can't expect to jump out to a 30-3 lead the way you did at Sun Devil Stadium. So I would say that I expect a fight. The more Sun Devil fans that show up in that stadium in Starkville, for every Sun Devil fan, that's one less cowbell, and that stuff is so annoying. It can get in your head. So it's a crazy place to play a game of football. I think that you're going to have a lot of curious SEC fans getting an opportunity to see an out of conference college football playoff team up close. I think the environment's going to be crazy, but it's a winnable game. You just logically, you have a team that's returning a bunch of players against a team that it beat the previous year. I don't think the difference was home and away, and ASU wasn't really ASU yet
Right.
when they went up against Mississippi State. So I feel decent about that game.
John says 45-31 ASU win. Ernesto says 40-27 ASU win. Lots of people do feel good about this game. Sharon says, I remember how arrogant Mississippi State fans were before that game. Hope we handle business back there again this year. I do think that, while it might not be enough to sway me from thinking that ASU will lose this game, the difference between home and road will be pretty massive. Can you imagine if Mississippi State was making that comeback at home? Right? Like, I think that might have ended up a little bit differently.
Yeah.
And I also think that, like you said, Mississippi State will be a better program this year. And I think you saw flashes of it, but you got to give Lebby time to grow over there and to build over there. And they basically overhauled everything, didn't they? Like they were basically starting afresh from this past season. So I think this is a sneaky, not potential loss in the fact that I'm going to predict it. I'm confident ASU can win this game, but out of the first 3 weeks, to me, this is clearly the biggest threat.
I agree.
Well, then let's get to week 3. Week 3, it is now swapping the home and away like you did with Mississippi State. On September 13th, you are welcoming the Bobcats to Tempe, taking on Texas State and G.J. Kenny, who is a very, very hot up-and-coming coach at Texas State, who is somebody who's kind of revamped that program and has a lot of respect among college football. This is going to be a game where you saw what Texas State did to Arizona State last year. You can't sleep on them, even though they're not in an SEC, a Big 10, a Big 12, Ralph.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that Texas State would go on a tear last season so that G.J. Kenny would get picked up by a bigger school and wouldn't be calling plays for them in the rematch. They're a team that scares me a little bit. Now, thank the Lord, Jordan McLeod is finally done playing college football.
For now, until they get an exception. A 15th year exception.
Yeah. But I'm glad to never have to deal with him again. He played a fantastic game against Arizona State. But they do have a couple of intriguing options, and both of them are enormous, which is the exact opposite of Jordan McLeod. Nate Yarnell transferred from University of Pittsburgh. This is somebody who's like Brock Osweiler territory of height, maybe not as much of a mobile quarterback. And then they have Colt Sparks, who kind of actually projected to be a college tight end, but is clinging to the quarterback position and was originally at Texas Tech, and he can run. And so, and he's 6'4". So they've got a couple of really, really intriguing options at quarterback. And you got to hope Sun Devil fans show up and make it real uncomfortable for whoever's taking snaps in that game.
And that's what Texas State fans did to Arizona State. Right? That's why ASU was down in that first half and they had to storm back. Sharon with a $4.99 super chat. Thanks, Sharon. Says, will we get Texas State hate week again with their fans this year? I do think that it's going to be really funny. And Ralph, I know that you probably saw a lot of this too, but every single week, we had opposing fans coming in here. Oh, we're going to wake you up. Oh, you guys haven't played us yet. Oh, you guys are fraudulent. And you just had to spend the entire week going like, hey, guys, this is a good football team. Shut up. You're so biased. And then you go and they play the game and ASU won. And it's like, hey, we told you. And then they never come back. So it will be interesting to see what they do. But I think that the biggest factor here beyond quarterback, Williams says that, without their quarterback, they're not a threat anymore. I think when you have a coach like G.J. Kenny, you're going to be a threat, right? We've seen what good coaching can do at Arizona State, right? And we saw what a 3-9 Arizona State team did to a college football playoff team in a singular game, right? And almost pulled off an upset there because of coaching and because of players believing in that coaching. I don't think you can sleep on Texas State, even though it's at home. I think those are two really good tune-up games before you hit the ground running in the Big 12.
Yeah, and Texas State, they could end up being the new UCF. Like, they're a massive, massive public university. They have I learned all about them last year. I didn't know a thing. But they've got a ton of students, and they got some little brother syndrome, and they tried to take it out on us. I think it'll be a little more friendly this time around. But I am looking for, if they do name Colt Sparks the quarterback, Sparks versus Sparky, that's got to be a PHNX like thumbnail on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, that is good. I'm a big fan of names. I think it's one of the top 5 most important things in being an athlete in college athletics, period. And that's one hell of a name. We're going to keep it going. We're going to break down Big 12 play. We still have more games for this season to get into. Big tests. But so far, I believe both of us have ASU going 3-0. Am I correct?
Yes, sir.
3-0. Well, what comes up next? We'll let you know right after our first break. Trying to cruise to a game against Texas State or against NAU at Sun Devil Stadium? Well, guess what? You can do it with our friends over at Waymo. Now, it's not a driverless car, even though there's no driver in it. It's called autonomous. And the best part is, not only are you getting in there and just chilling, hanging out, it's just you. It's not ride sharing, it's ride hailing. But you're also stepping into an all-electric Jaguar I-Pace. And that is a vehicle that, through all of the Waymos, has had 150,000 trips per week across San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Phoenix, and has gone over 40 million miles of real-world driving experience. That's enough to drive to the moon and back 80 times. And I'll be honest, I was shocked the first time that I saw a Waymo on the road. Where I live, there's a ton around there. And as I learned more about them, I'm like, wow, it's actually really impressive. And I'm like, oh, but are they that good at driving? Can you feel safe? Yeah, you feel absolutely safe, secure, and sound in a Waymo. And the best part is, you can do it to get to local sporting events like spring training, right? Or maybe even you can get to the Phoenix Open, which you probably need a ride. All you have to do is download the Waymo One app and ride today. And maybe you can ride to Gila River Resorts and Casinos, whether it's for one of our watch parties to hit their state-of-the-art gaming floor, maybe their sportsbook, or if you don't want to travel too far, go to GilaPropPlay.com and you can have a chance to win $5.9 million. Whoa. Up until February 8th, GilaPropPlay.com and answer 26 questions about the big game for your shot at the grand prize. It's free to play. Enter for free. Make your big game predictions. Instant wins. You can score instant prizes from $5 to $100 and free bonus play while you answer the questions. And then, of course, there's a $5.9 million grand prize. Answer all 26 questions correctly, and you'll win $5.9 million jackpot. You do you. At Gila River Resorts and Casinos, visit playatgila.com for more details and check out the link in the description below. And of course, if you don't know, we are going to have more watch parties. We just had a Suns watch party there last week. I know William was there. We're going to have more, about one a month coming up for the rest of the season. You can check all that out at gophnx.com/events. Welcome back into PHNX Sun Devil. Sharon, William, Sun Devil, 1982, BC, Ernesto, John, Short Bus, everybody who's in the chat, thank you so much for hitting that like button. Anthony Totri still with his little tootsies in the sand in San Diego, just hanging out. And that's why it's myself and Ralph breaking it down. But we're always lucky to have the Ralph Amsden on. So we're both starting 3-0. And here comes, in my prediction, Ralph, what will be one of the tougher tests of the entire season. First game of Big 12 play, September 20th, against Baylor on the road. This game, sneakily, Ralph, is going to be pretty important.
I mean, definitely. If people think that ASU overperformed this year, you have to remember Dave Aranda came into this year, I think, one of the top 3 when it came to coaching odds to get fired in season, along with Sam Pittman, who also did pretty well considering at Arkansas. And so, you know, the interesting thing about this Baylor team is you have Dave Aranda, who is known for defense, and the whole thing became, can Dave Aranda have a decent enough offense to win games at Baylor? Baylor ended up being one of the better offenses in the Big 12 and still had one of the worst defenses and got to 8 wins. And so they're scary in that you don't necessarily know what you're going to get from them. And also, they were very disorganized coming into last season and still managed to win 8 games. It was, DeQuan Finn started at quarterback, and then I think they finished up with Sawyer Robertson. And so to make an adjustment like that in season and still be successful, I think that kind of it means you have to circle this game for sure.
Yeah, this is going to be one of those, I think ASU fans are going to think they just kind of walk in and they win. But going on the road to Baylor, and listen, I'm a Sawyer Robertson truther. Over 3,000 yards without even starting the season last year, 28 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, like 62.2% completion percentage, average of 8.3 yards. I mean, I think he's going to be really good. I think it's going to be really good for Baylor. And like you mentioned, they're going to be coming into this game a lot more prepared. Dave Aranda does not have that fire lit under his ass of being on the hot seat, which, hey, maybe that hurts, right? Maybe he was like, I got to coach for my life, and now he's not. But I think Baylor can be a sneaky contender for playing in the Big 12 championship game because they overachieved, because now they have their consistency, because they have their quarterback. This is going to be, I feel like, one of those early games that people are like, that might be the early contender for Big 12 game of the year.
Yeah, and I can't disagree with you on Sawyer Robertson. He threw 2 picks, but he threw 3 touchdowns against BYU. We know how talented their secondary was this year. Texas Tech's defense was junk, but it was still a road game where he threw for 5 scores. He torched Kansas at the end of the year to keep them out of a bowl game with 310 yards, 4 touchdowns on 74% completion. So he got better and better as the season went on. He's definitely somebody that they need to be in the film room already on this kid.
And you know what? I bet they already are. Not that they're going to be overlooking everything, but when you have a potent threat like that, I definitely feel like you need to just be aware of him. But I think that's going to be a really, really good litmus test for this team going into Big 12. If they're 3-0 and they go in and they beat Baylor on the road to 4-0 and they start the season ranked, depending on where they start, they could be one of the higher ranked teams. I don't say in the country because they're not going to be like top 5, top 7, top 8, but I feel like anywhere from like 15 to 12 if they take care of those 4 teams rather convincingly. So I think that that's going to be a really big test. I do think they're going to win. I think with these big tests, I'm going to bet on Kenny and the squad. John in the chat says 28-24 ASU win over Baylor. Sam to Malik, last minute touchdown to win it. That would be crazy. Are
Very
you
specific.
I know. That would be awesome. If that happens, John, you got to call back to this. Are you going with a win to start conference play for ASU?
Yeah, I believe so. We saw Utah go into Baylor and get a win with some hard-nosed defense and a pig farmer at quarterback. I think that Arizona State can do the same.
Yeah, I think Arizona State is going to be the favorites in almost every single game that they play this year. And I think they're going to deserve it as well. And against Baylor, I think Baylor's a good team. I think Baylor can test them. But if I had to put my money on it, I'm rolling with Arizona State. Not even from a bias perspective, just from a football perspective, right? I think this team starts out 4-0, and then you head back home. And you take on another sneaky good team that kind of surprised some people last year in TCU. How do you see September 27th against TCU working out for ASU?
This is a team. I actually like a little bit. I wonder where we're getting in the process of TCU being comfortable with Sonny Dykes running the show. Not a lot of teams give their head coach grace if they struggle 3 years beyond a college football playoff appearance or national championship appearance. And so, you do have to wonder if if there's going to be some distractions or, people float these hot seat lists or something like that. But TCU, if Todd Graham is still affiliated with TCU, that'll be fun. He
Yeah.
was an analyst for them this last year. But Sonny Dykes is a good coach, and the air raid can give a team fits, even a team that runs like an adjustment answers based defense, the way that Brian Ward and everybody from that North Dakota State coaching tree does. So I think that this one is a 50-50 for me, but it being a home game, I'm going to give ASU the advantage.
Yeah, I also think people just forget that TCU was 9-4 last year. Now, the 9 wins themselves were not awesome. You took down Stanford, Long Island University, Kansas back when Kansas was struggling, Utah when Utah was kind of at its peak. These guys aren't Utah anymore. And then you beat Texas Tech, which is probably their best win of the season. You beat Oklahoma State, Arizona, Cincinnati. So they took care of business against worse teams. But when they played some higher competition, Baylor lost. They lost to Houston, lost to SMU, and lost to UCF. So they had a relatively easy schedule, and then they beat Louisiana in the New Mexico Bowl. So not like the hardest schedule, but they still ended up getting 9 wins. And like you mentioned, the Todd Graham aspect is really interesting. I'm still going to roll with Arizona State because, yeah, it's at home. And I just don't think that TCU is better than ASU. I really don't think any of these teams are better than ASU. And not to spoil it, but I don't know if I'm going to predict them to lose at home again this season. I think all the games that I'm looking at that could be potential losses, Ralph, are coming from road games, which brings us to our next game. It's after a bye week. So there's the first bye week after TCU, second week of Big 12 play. First week of October is the bye. Second week of October, October 11th, on the road, and one of the toughest places to play in college football, period, taking on the Utah Utes and no more Indeed.com under center for them. What do you see out of Utah this year, Ralph? Should Arizona State fans be worried about maybe a bounce back year from the Utes?
Yes, my advice is to always worry about Utah. They're around every corner. They're the boogeyman. I applaud how every single Big 12 fan base danced on their grave this last year, and I say get it in when you can, because we've all heard of regression to the mean when you overperform. Well, what if you drastically underperform? And I still don't trust Utah at the end of a season. They have been too thin depth-wise because their system is to develop these guys over 4 or 5 years to get to the point where they're playing championship level football. Well, you lose 3 or 4 of those guys and you have recruits who aren't quite yet developed. They're not ready. And we see them fall off at the end of a lot of seasons. So this being earlier in the season, that doesn't bode well for anyone, ASU included. It being in Salt Lake is not a lot of fun. But let's not forget that before Utah was Utah, Arizona State dominated them, absolutely dominated them for their first decade run in the Pac-12. And so I think that I think they have a pretty good chance here, especially because Utah is having to embrace the portal. They're having to get away from their own methodology. They're still not deep, and they don't have any positions where we can say they're very dependable at quarterback or running back. They had two 25-year-olds playing those two positions this year. So they're a little more talented at receiver than they've been in recent years. I think with the return of Dorian Singer, I think he's still there. But other than that, I think that this is a winnable game for Arizona State. It'll be a tough one though.
David says Utah gets smoked. William says Utah doesn't have a legit QB, but they'll make up for it. Expect a rock fight. Clint says Utes no bowl win in 6 years. Last year's win wasn't big against Utah. John says 28-27 win ASU. We make a late defensive stop to win after a late run. Ernesto goes 30-27 ASU wins by last second field goal. I think Utah will be better this year. But like you mentioned, there are enough question marks, and I think that on the road, Arizona State's really going to be trying to make a statement. this year because their only losses came on the road last year. And the talent level, man, the talent level of ASU, they have a quarterback, they have their wide receiver, they have their tight end, they have their offensive line. I think running back is a deep room. I think there are still questions there. Is Kanye running back one? I would assume so right now. Is it Kyson? Is it a healthy dose of both? Are you involving a third, a fourth running back? Raleek Brown, Jason Brown, Alton McCaskill? Like, there are questions there, but by the time you hit week 6, I expect this to be a well-oiled machine, and I expect ASU to move to 6-0 on the season, beating Utah on the road. Up next is Texas Tech. We're going to unpack that game and the rest of the season after our second break. No better way to enjoy all the PHNX Sun Devils in your life than with Pure Edibles. So what you want to do for the rest of the show, you can kick back, you could take a Pure Edibles, or maybe you're sick and tired of watching Arizona State men's basketball, and that's okay. Guess what? The best part about Pure Edibles is that they have certain effects on their tins, and one of those is Uplift, and I would highly recommend taking the Uplift one before you watch Arizona State men's basketball take on Kansas State tonight, because if they lose, I might cry. I might cry in postgame, so maybe I need it. Maybe I need the relaxed one. No, scratch that. I absolutely need the relaxed one, and I need it a lot. And the best part about Pure Edibles, besides what they list on there and what it's going to make you feel like, is what it tastes like. I love the watermelon gummies. They taste just like a Jolly Rancher. They have Kicks, which is their version of Starburst. It tastes exactly like Starburst. They are a candy company with fantastic CBN, CBG, CBD, and marijuana-derived THC cannabinoids in them. Go find yourself some Pure Edibles products from one of the over 130 dispensaries in Arizona. Listen, statistically speaking, and I'm really sorry to say this, one of you stinks. And it's okay. We've all been there. Listen, I've had a moment in my life where I haven't been taking care of myself the way that I need to, and maybe you need to step your game up. And you can do that with Mando. Now, Mando is hyper-focused on keeping every aspect of a man's body smelling fresh and clean, and I mean every aspect. Pits, belly button, balls, butt cracks, grundles, and more. All kept clean and smelling fresh with Mando. And Mando Starter Pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream tube deodorant, and 2 free products of your choice, like mini body wash, deodorant wipes, and free shipping. As a special offer for PHNX Sun Devils listeners, new customers can get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code that equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code PHNX at shopmando.com. That's SHOPMANDO.com. Please support our show. Tell them that we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. Sorry for calling some of you stinky. I didn't mean it, but if you are, I would highly recommend maybe, working on that. Something ASU needs to work on is finding a way to beat Texas Tech, Ralph. Last season, one of the few losses for ASU came as their first true road test in the Big 12 in Lubbock. Sam Levitt's first true road test in the Big 12, and it came at a pretty disappointing loss where Arizona State kind of shot themselves in the foot. So October 18th, the roles are reversed. Texas Tech has to travel to Tempe. Are the Sun Devils moving to 7-0 and 4-0 in the Big 12?
This is a tough one, and the reason is the hire that Texas Tech made this offseason should give Sun Devil fans some pause. They brought in Mac Leftwich as their offensive coordinator. You would remember Mac Leftwich from making our life hell as Texas State's offensive coordinator last year. So, and in the process, the one thing that they've never been able to do at Texas Tech is win more than 8 games. Pretty much only, Mike Leach could do that. And they can't really field a defense. So this year they dedicated a bunch of their resources, and we know they have good NIL. They bought players off our team in many sports. But they focused some of that on defense. Amir Matthews is a great corner, actually out of the Phoenix area, who's going to come in and contribute for them right away. They're very excited about 6'5" edge rusher Romello Height. They got a 6'8", 340-pound offensive lineman out of from North Carolina to come in. Like they're going to be stocked with talent. It's just a matter of whether or not they put it together, because they just don't have a culture of playing both sides of the ball. That's it, man. They're a tough team, and if I'm giving Arizona State 2 losses on the season, this is one of them. I do
Okay.
think ASU is going to win this game, though.
Okay, so you would say this is the hardest game of the season so far, and you
Yes,
would say the second hardest game of the entire season.
I I believe that to be true, and I see that Will hit in the chat that they don't have Taj Brooks, but the thing is, as ASU fans, we have to say, oh, well, we're losing Cam Scadoo. That doesn't mean that we don't have a chance anymore. It means that the culture is established, and that's why Kanye Udo would want to come here and run the ball. They established a culture of running the ball, and they had Quentin Joyner come over from USC. He could step in and be a star immediately in this offense, and they've got Baron Morton returning at quarterback too. So yeah, this team scares me a little bit. If ASU loses a second game, which will tell you kind of what my end prediction will be for this, I think this will be it. But I do like ASU to win.
I got, I wouldn't say crap, but just some people pushing back because I mentioned that there were 3 of the biggest tests for ASU this season. I did not include Texas Tech. Now, what was the tiebreaker for me was the fact that this is a home game. I think a really big part of why ASU struggled last year was because it was their first true road test, and especially for Sam Levitt. With Tech specifically, though, I can definitely talk myself into this being a top 3 or top 2 most challenging game. But I also want to keep in mind for all of these teams, and Tech is not excluded from this, but we thought Utah was going to run this conference. And by this point in the Big 12 season, we realized that wasn't the case. Now, we thought Utah was still better than what they ended up being, but the entire conference was flipped topsy-turvy. U of A was basically in a free spiral downwards, right? Oklahoma State still had not won a conference game. And we could talk about a good recruiting class, right? And we could talk about the fact that that culture is established. And maybe that's true with Texas Tech. Maybe it's true with Baylor, right? With Baylor, all their returning players, or TCU, whatever it is. Things can get flipped up and topsy-turvy. I still am going to bet on ASU to win this game. I do believe that they are going to go 7-0 to start. And to be honest with you, Ralph, I don't think they slow down after that. They go back-to-back home games, right? 1 week later, they're taking on the University of Houston, which I believe will be one of the more improved teams in the Big 12 this year. I do think that they had a better season than people give them credit for last year, but they're still in the middle of building something, kind of like how ASU has been in the middle of building something. Their rebuild is just going to take a little bit longer than what ASU's accelerated one was. Do you think there's any chance that Houston is good enough to pull off an upset or to pose a legitimate threat in this game against ASU?
No, and a big part of that is because they were a quarterback away from being competitive last year, and they do have a very, very good coach who had a lot of success at Tulane. However, I think they're going to be a quarterback away this year too. Connor Weigman has never proven that he could stay healthy. He's a very intriguing transfer because he was someone who was predicted to be a day 1, day 2 NFL pick when he was coming out of high school. And he just, again, he hasn't been able to stay on the field at Texas Tech, or at Texas A&M. So, he makes the move to Houston. And the last time a quarterback moved from Texas A&M to Houston was Kyle Allen. He lasted 4 games and then lasted about 6-7 years in the NFL, which is
Crazy.
a crazy thing to think about. But yeah, I don't see him being able to put together a full season, and I don't think we've seen enough to say he's got the star power to get them over the hump. They will definitely be improved, but I don't think they're a threat to beat Arizona State.
Yeah, I think they'll be improved as well. We do have Captain Redbeard, who's very familiar with Texas A&M, and I'm wondering if you think that if Weigman's going to be the truth over for the Cougs.
There's a reason we didn't want him.
There you go. That's all you really need to know. Ernesto says 45-17 ASU win. John says 38-10 ASU win. BC says 20-plus points. Oh, no, BC was actually talking about Texas Tech, 20-plus points. John also says against Texas Tech, 56-21 revenge tour ASU. That would be a statement and a half. Another statement, Ralph, would be on November 1st, a rematch from Dallas to Ames, a Big 12 championship rematch against Iowa State on the road in November. Ralph, to me, There is absolutely no debate. This is the hardest game of the season for Arizona State and the biggest obstacle for them to end undefeated.
Yeah, I think that this one is a loss. I do. But in this scenario that we've created, in this hypothetical, ASU goes to Iowa State and they take a loss at what, 8-0 is what we had the bet. Assuming they come into the season ranked,
Yes,
that's going to be a monster football game. I mean, even when you come up with a scenario where you have a team like 8-9-0 going into a game, and you know they went into the season ranked, you're assuming you're talking about a top 7 team.
agreed.
At this point, and so it would feel like probably a much bigger letdown to lose that game in the moment than it does in this hypothetical conversation that we're having right now. So I haven't really factored that in my mind of like the weight of a top 10 team coming into Ames. But I think that the loss they took in the conference championship has them, they've circled this one. It'll be a really important one for them. And I think ASU, long not dependable on the road over the course of a full season, will find a way to drop this one.
Yeah, I think this is definitely the most likely loss. I think right now, since it's February, I'm just gonna say screw it. I think they're gonna go undefeated because who's gonna hold me accountable? Nobody. If I'm not gonna hold me accountable, then who the hell cares? But I do think Iowa State's gonna get slightly worse this year. I mean, you lose Jaden Noel, Jalen Higgins. I think I got the Jaden and Jalen correct. Maybe I got it mixed up. But 2 really, really good NFL level wide receivers for Iowa State. However, you are returning Rocco Becht, who, for my money, is the second best quarterback in the Big 12 behind Sam Leavitt. And even if Sam plays well this year, I think there's still a chance that Rocco can be the best quarterback in the Big 12. I just think he has that type of talent. I think a great season from Rocco puts him in a Heisman conversation. I feel the same way about Sam Leavitt. I think this could be a college game day game. Like this feels like a holy crap moment. These might be the 2 best teams in the Big 12, and this rivalry feels like it could be something that's brewing because of what happened in the Big 12 championship. If ASU is going to lose a game, it will be this one. I think they pull it out in dramatic fashion. Give me a Jesus field goal to end it in Ames.
I like that. And what's interesting about Iowa State, they're not a big portal school. They're kind of like Clemson in that way, not to that extreme, but they did go shopping for a very specific type of player this year. And I wonder how much influence Arizona State had on that. But they went out and got a guy named Tomatoa McDonough from Yale. They went out and got another player named Vontre Malone from Tulsa. And another guy from Northern Iowa named Cannon Butler, and they're all edge rushers. Every single one of them is an edge rusher.
Yeah. And Iowa State in general, and just being there in Dallas, just physicality-wise, look like a smaller team than ASU. And I think you saw them, like you mentioned with the players you just brought up, try to beef up a little bit more, get to the quarterback a little bit easier. The weather is going to be the biggest X factor. I'm already juiced about this game. Like, I'm really excited. And the only thing that would be a disappointment is if it's a bad game, unless ASU blows them out. But if Iowa State blows ASU out, even if ASU is 8-0, it'll be a little bit of a disappointment. But we're talking if ASU wins this game, which I'm just going to say they are because I'm a homer and I don't care. We're talking 9-0, beating Iowa State, Baylor, Texas Tech, which are great Big 12 wins, 2 of those on the road, beating Utah on the road, which depending on if Utah can bounce back, I don't think it's a stretch, Ralph, to say you might be looking at, depending on the nature of these wins, and if what I'm saying is correct, which I'm never wrong, a top 5 team in the country.
That would be optimal.
Yeah, well, I would
That
say
would be
so.
pretty good.
I would say so. Listen, I know what's going to happen, and I know that some U of A fan, Iowa State fan, whatever it is, they're going to clip this, and then we're going to go to next season. ASU's going to have like 2 losses, and then they'll be like, "This dumbass said that ASU was going to go undefeated and be a top 5 team." Oh, you know what, man? They have 2 losses, and they're a top 12 team, sucker. Like, I just know that that's going to happen.
If I'm going to have a bad time in the 2025 season, I want it to be because I fell off the skyscraper of expectations that I built for myself.
Facts. Oh my gosh.
The end.
Wait. I just got a crazy text from Anthony Totri. He lost a bet saying that he had to shave his head, get a buzz cut because U of A beat ASU. He said, just finish the haircut. Want me to call in for a minute to show it and then be done? I am, yes, in all caps, yes. I don't know how we're going to be able to do this, Ralph. I might need you to hop off for a second and then hop back on because I think we can only have one guest at a time. Actually, no, I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna say actually just send a picture. Actually, just
you can boot me for, or if you want to finish up the schedule and boot me, but I want to see American History X Totri.
I know, I do too. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna tell him, I'm gonna text him when we're gonna let him come in here. So I'll say I'll text you when to call. This is great podcasting. What we're going to do is we're going to take a break. Ralph and I are going to go through the final 3 games of the season. Then I'm going to have Totri call in, and then we'll wrap up. So we'll go a little bit long here, but that's okay because we need to see this, and we're going to. So don't go anywhere after our final break. Let's talk about 200 free buckaroos, because I always save that for the end of the ad read, and I feel like it's a pretty good hook. Because if you told me, hey man, Erik, hey, here's $200 for free, I'd take it. And that's exactly what Desert Financial is trying to do. And of course, they are the best place for Sun Devil fans to do their banking. They're Arizona's largest, most trusted local credit union, dedicated to creating exceptional experiences by giving back to the community and providing financial solutions that make lives better. Plus, you can also go on one of their 3 different Visa University debit cards, ASU themed. You got Sparky on there. You can see it on the lower third. It is the best place to do your banking, and it is a place that I've been using since I got my first job in high school and for every job since then. My family's been using it for generations, and maybe you could start a tradition for yours with financial security over at Desert Financial Credit Union. When you open a free checking account online, get $200 in bonuses. Get started by visiting desertfinancial.com/200. And if you noticed, I started the show with not the best aura, okay? And then I had to reach over to the side and realize I didn't put my Shady Rays on. And as soon as I put my Shady Rays on, it's like my Superman cape, right? It's like my Spider-Man mask. Like, I just ascend to this another level when I get in Shady Rays, because they're an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. And as one of those 300,000 people, I can promise you they are the perfect pair of sunglasses. And guess what? I'm a klutz. I forget things, but if my shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, I don't have to sweat it. They have the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every pair is backed by a lost or broken replacement, and if I don't love my shades, I can exchange them for a new pair or return worry-free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Exclusively for PHNX Sun Devils listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com. Use code PHNX for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself. The shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Thanks to Chris, David, John, William, BC, Sharon, Devnal, Danny. Thanks to everybody in the chat talking ASU football with Ralph and I. We will have Anthony Totri call in and show off his buzz cut, but let's get through these final 3 games of the season. Ralph, you have ASU at 1 loss so far. Am I correct in that?
That is correct.
Okay. I have them undefeated, and I'm going to continue to have them undefeated as they take on West Virginia after a late bye week, which I do like for them. A bye week before this West Virginia game on November 15th at home. Ray Anderson celebrating at home against the Mountaineers. WVU, not the best season last year, Ralph. Do you feel like they improve going into this one?
No, and a big part of that's just because of the history of Rich Rod. Anytime he comes into a program, he clears it out. I think his conference record in his first year at a new school is 12-27 if you leave out the Jacksonville State run, because he came in right away. I think COVID shortened season went 5-0. So even then, 17-27, lifetime record his first year in conference play. His first year he got to West Virginia, I think they went 3-8. His first year at U of A was one of his better debuts. They went 8-5, but still 4-5 in conference. That first Rich Rod year is always a transition year. I don't expect them to hit the ground running. I will say ASU fans probably going to get to see one of two quarterbacks, either Nico Marchiol homecoming, which would be absolutely wild. He played at Hamilton High School, or Max Brown, who was at University of Charlotte down the road from me this season, who was very talented. So I think they'll flash. I think they'll have some moments, but ASU is going to win this game.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a win for ASU. I have them moving, continuing undefeated. This is a game that I feel like out of the games that I listed as the biggest test for ASU, most people disagreed with me. On the road against Colorado, November 22nd, second to last game of the season. I do think Colorado gets slightly worse this year than they did last year. You lose Travis Hunter, you lose Shadur Sanders. I do think they have a lot of talent coming in there. But on the road in the cold against Colorado late in the season, personally, Ralph, I think they get this win. But do you agree, or do you feel like Dion and the boys can take down a probably ranked ASU at this point?
I don't think that Colorado is going to be all that good this year. I think they'll start good or start well. I don't know. ASU English major, you tell me. But I think that there's going to be pressure to play Julian Lewis. I think that's what people want to see, and I think they have a very, very good option at quarterback as a transfer in from Liberty, who I think they could probably ride to an 8-9 win season. But I think there's going to be pressure to have the future established right now. Julian Lewis, the biggest star in the world coming out of high school, and the battle between Colorado and USC made him as much of a household name as any high school recruit can be. And so I think that if they end up going with the freshmen toward the end of the year, it gives them the ability as a program to say, hey, we're turning the page, be patient with us, check back in with us next year. This will be late in the season for ASU. So I think ASU takes advantage and they win this game.
I think ASU wins this game. I think Colorado is going to be a little bit better than people expect. I don't think Dion is around to try to have these lower years. And I do think that with Colorado, if they're not great this year and Dion doesn't have his kid there, I think Dion's gone. And I've said that I don't think he's there, and he's there for the long haul. And so I think there's going to be kind of this inherent pressure to overachieve going into next season and to prove that it's not just a Shadur and Travis show, but that this is a program that can kind of sustain and build talent. We'll see. I hope I'm wrong. I still think ASU beats them, but I see that as being a tougher game than some people imagine. And maybe that's because I was so low on Colorado going into this past season and they surprised me, but we'll see. Ralph, one game left. We both have, well, you have ASU at 1 loss. I have ASU as undefeated, but we both agree what the toughest game is. And I think we both agree that this game against the University of Arizona at home, either on the 28th or the 29th, is not the toughest game on the schedule. But what do you see out of U of A in year 2 under Brent Brennan? Are you shocked that he's back at the helm?
No. First of all, I don't think they have the resources to make a change. Secondly, he didn't have a portal season. When they brought him on, he didn't really have the ability to do that. And I'm kind of a fan of Brent Brennan and the way he ran things at San Jose State. He would consistently be the very first offer for California talent. Him and the staff of San Jose State were some of the better evaluators. They got to a lot of these kids early. And now that we exist in a world with a transfer portal, you have all of those established relationships from elite California athletes who went elsewhere and things didn't work out. They have the opportunity to have a massive talent infusion. So I think you have to factor that in and be patient with him, which they have been. It was probably more resource related than anything, because not a lot of people wanted him back. Now, I don't think that I think because of the late start, it will actually offset what they're capable of under Brent Brennan by a full year more than Jedd Fisch. So if you have the patience to stick with Brent Brennan into year 4, they could be good. However, they're not going to be good next year, and they're definitely not going to be good in this game at the end of the year after getting beat up by not having a lot of O linemen and D linemen. So give me ASU to move to 11-1 in a conference championship game.
Oh, fire me up, Ralph. Yeah, no Teterow and McMillan for them is a massive loss. They've lost a good amount of talent to the NFL draft and, of course, in the transfer portal as well. I see this as a rebuilding year for U of A, and I do not see them coming into our house in Tempe and beating this team with, again, potentially a college football playoff berth on the line, because if you go to the Big 12 championship, you have a chance to get an auto bid, and this team understands more than anybody what those odds mean and what it means to take on U of A. I want one final question for you, Ralph. What do you think is the most underrated challenge for Arizona State for this schedule? Maybe not a game that most people are looking at and saying that's going to be a big test, but one that you're looking at and saying, maybe ASU could lose that game.
I think the biggest challenge for Arizona State is to forget who they were in 2024, which is a team that was, kind of against all odds, didn't always throw 4 touchdowns in a game, just did whatever it took to win. I think that expectations should only focus on the end result. That's it. It shouldn't focus on how some of these games are going to look, because in the Big 12, things are either ugly or exciting. They're not anything else. And the key to the Big 12 has always been win close games. That's what it was for TCU when they made the Natty. That's what it was for Arizona State this year. You look at a team like Kansas, who went 5-7 this year. They were 24 points away from being 10-2. It's all about close games. So don't expect, even if ASU is winning some of these games by 3 or 4, that ASU is underperforming. You're going to be in close games. You just have to find a way to win.
So we mentioned the powerhouses or the big threats, the Iowa States, the Baylors, right? The Texas Techs. Out of TCU, Utah, Houston, West Virginia, Arizona, Colorado, just the Big 12 games. Who do you think, as far as not the ones that we've labeled as potential losses, is most likely to maybe surprise and be a better team this season than we expect?
I think that the expectation of Texas Tech, last year they were expected to be 9th. I think this year I don't see that going higher than 7th or 6th. I think they're a top 5 team in the conference.
Okay.
So I do believe Texas Tech is going to exceed expectations. I would love to believe that Cincinnati could be that as well, especially since they beat Arizona State last year, and I really love their situation they have at quarterback, but I don't think they've added enough. I wanted it to be Cincinnati. I very much believe it'll be Texas Tech.
That'll be interesting. A lot to look at, Ralph. Thank you so much. We got you down for one more day tomorrow, 1 p.m. show, diving into everything ASU sports related. Thank you so much for spending your time with us and breaking down the schedule. Always an absolute pleasure.
Appreciate you.
All right, that was Ralph Amsden. You can follow him on social at Ralph Amsden. And, of course, you can keep up with all the other stuff that he does, College Football Apostles, Forecast, all of that. Ralph is awesome. I am going to text Totri, and I'm going to tell him it is okay for him to call in. I want to remind everybody, if you are watching on TV, the party always continues over at gophnx.com, and I promise you're going to be one and watching this party. Now, while we wait for Totri, it is time for Factor Cap, presented by Branded Bills. Elevate your brand with Branded Bills, the perfect headwear and apparel. Use code PHNX for 20% off your first order. The question that I'm asking you, Erik, is, are Arizona State's tournament chances still alive? Well, Erik, that's a great question. And I don't think so. I don't think so. And I'm curious JJ's thoughts in the chat, but I think this most recent stretch of games, the losses, and the way that they have played, I just do not believe that Arizona State can still make the tournament. Now, if they go on and win the Big 12 tournament, then obviously it's a different story, but I just don't see it. I wish that it was a fact. I wish that they were still alive, and maybe they're like you're playing Call of Duty and you're one shot. Like maybe their odds are one shot, right? Like maybe it's like you got one slightest graze from a bullet on the top end of your shoulder and you're dead. Maybe they are still alive, but I just don't see it. John saying we need Totri's record prediction. Maybe I'll put him on the spot. He liked the message to call in. So now I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to stall. Actually, I'm going to read your comments. Sharon says, biggest potential for a loss for me is Baylor, Utah to be determined, and Iowa State, maybe Texas Tech or Mississippi State. You know, I do think, Ralph with a crazy stat here. Ralph says Big 12 tournament has only been won by a 4 seed or lower 3 times ever. Iowa State was all 3 times. Wow. JJ says, this is what I'll say. There's a path, but performance-based projection, I don't see it either. Lots of road left. I think there's definitely a path, but are they alive? Speaking of alive, I live for this. I am so excited. Oh, there he is, Anthony Totri with a buzz cut. How are you feeling, Totri?
There you go, man. I'm alive, man. I'm alive. I feel like I lost some inches off the top, you know? So we've gone from a crisp 5'8" to an unfortunate 5'7". But I don't hate it, man. I don't hate the look.
Yeah, I don't think it looks that bad. You were wanting this too. Like you wanted to see this happen.
I wanted to see if we could do it, and I think we can. You know, I think for Damon's sake, I'm glad he didn't have to do it.
Yeah, that's fair. You want to know what else happened while you were gone, Totri? I don't know if we can get a Captain Redbeard cam, but Captain Redbeard also got the buzz cut.
Let's go.
You inspired me, Totri.
Yeah, not happening.
It.
Not getting a buzz cut. Not happening. Not joining the party.
There's a reason why I'm his first mate. Now we know why.
Look at us. Look at all 3 of us. Look at us just all sharing the screen together, huh? Ain't this something?
Hell of a show we got here.
Okay, so the chat wants to know. Oh my gosh, Greg Esposito, I don't know who that is, says buzzed Lightyear. Ralph says Zangief on Ozempic. I don't know who Zangief is. I have to look that up. JJ says welcome to the Buzz way of life. Leah says buzz cut Tony.
It doesn't look bad though. Like
no, stop admiring yourself. Enough. Stop admiring yourself.
I mean, we just got the right angle, bro.
I got a real question for you. Okay, I'm putting you on the spot. ASU, do they go undefeated this year?
Do they go undefeated? Oof. 11-1, back-to-back Big 12 champs, and they're headed to the playoff again.
And they lose too?
Whoa.
I feel like there's only one answer.
There is. Well, you're not. We're on different things here, and the game that I'm going to say they lose is not. It's not going to do me any favors. That road game in Boulder is going to be tough,
dude. I've been saying that. Yeah.
I know the Iowa State game is a big one on the first. That's going to have playoff implications, Big 12 title implications probably. But that Colorado one worries me a little bit. Just going up to Boulder, the time in the season. At that point, like you've got Arizona left on the schedule. You might be looking ahead. For me, that one feels like a tough one.
I agree with you. We're going to get more into the schedule, get Totri's opinion when he's not on vacation. And, of course, when I'm not on vacation either. We'll do that together. Thanks for calling in, Buzzcut Tony.
Love it. Have a good rest of the week, y'all.
Yep. Enjoy your vacation. Everybody leave a like for bald-ish Anthony Totri and for bald-ish Kyle Cooper as well. And if you want to follow them, you can follow them at Anthony_Totri. You can follow Kyle at KCoopSports. Of course, you can follow Ralph, who pitched in and did the real work today for the whole hour. You can follow him at Ralph Amsden. Of course, he's on the Unafraid show, College Football Apostles. He just does everything. He's a wonderful part of the Sun Devil community, Sun Devil spaces, and everything. I looked up Zangief, by the way, and that is a good comp. It's a good comp, Ralph. It's pretty funny. Thanks, everybody in the chat. Danny, William, John, JJ, Espo, Leah in the chat as well. BC, Sharon, Danny, thank you all so much for being here, sticking with me. Make sure you come back tonight. Arizona State hoops against the Kansas State Wildcats. You don't want to miss it. Pop a pure edible, sit back, relax, and your boys rocking solo tonight with Captain Redbeard. Of course, steering the ship. You can follow the show at PHNX_Sun Devils. You can follow me at ERIKRUBY. And until just a couple of hours from now, go Devils and peace.
We all silly like the mayor.